Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
And if you follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating, please send us a screenshot through Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod of that 5-star rating, and we will send you a Women's Sports Weekly sticker.
This past weekend, we had one of our final hangouts with Meg in Denver because sadly, our friend Meg is leaving.
We've talked about Meg quite a bit on this podcast, most recently on our trip to Kenya. She started a nonprofit called Hockey Health, HAKI Health. Kenya.org if you're looking to donate somewhere. She is moving on to bigger and brighter things, and she's moving to Palisade in Colorado, which we also talked about last week. Colorado wine country. It's going to be great for her, but it is very sad for us.
Very sad. Meg is part of a friend group that we met when we first moved out here 5 years ago. We claimed the name Rado Ladies for our friend group. A bunch of our girlfriends and their partners just had a few great years. Little by little, our group has dwindled away and everyone continues to move away. Meg is the last Rado lady outside of us who's been living in Denver. While she will still be in Colorado, she's going to be a little further from us. It's just sad.
It is sad. When we left New Jersey, it was sad for our friends and family.
Yep.
I feel like we've just had it repeatedly happen to us where we're getting payback because we left them, and now we have friends who are just continuing to leave and find better opportunities and better things for themselves, which is great. I always want to be supportive because I know how hard of a decision it is to decide to move. And you do think about the people that you're leaving behind. There is a part of me that wants to be like, Meg, don't go. And also I know that that is not helpful at all. So we're very happy for her for starting this new adventure.
So I feel like Palisade is the perfect place for Meg. Going to drink all the wine, and we will have a fun place to visit. While we are sad, we are also happy for our friends who have moved on to bigger and better things. Lucky for us, technology allows us all to stay connected quite frequently, so that's always good too. But sad weekend for us.
Yeah, and it's difficult to make friends in your 30s, and we have really had to be intentional about doing that, and we've done a great job and continue to have community here in Denver, which is great. The thing that I miss the most about college and high school friendships is just being able to go over to someone's house, someone's apartment, and just watch TV on their couch. And I feel like that happens less as you get older.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate. When you're in your 30s, meeting new friends and making new friends is a little harder, and you have to be more intentional. So it does hit home a little harder when friends leave the city you're living in.
And if you are listening and you are in high school or college, and I know we have some listeners in that age range, enjoy it.
Yes.
Listen to these two oldies that say enjoy it, because it is some of the most fun times. And I know to hear that is so annoying because there are not so fun times as well, but the ability to connect with others, it just gets more difficult as you get older.
It definitely does.
We really have friends all around the country, which is great because anytime we go on a trip, we have people we can visit.
Yes.
Which we are going to Philadelphia this upcoming weekend for your marathon, which I want to talk about. But we have friends in Philadelphia. We have your best friend, Erica. I have friends from college living in Philadelphia. So there's so many opportunities to reconnect, which is also great. So tell us how you're feeling about your upcoming marathon.
I'm feeling pretty good overall. Excited. The week leading into a marathon, I think the biggest thing is it's just a mental game. I know what I can and can do running wise, so I'm smart about that. But I think the nutrition piece is always hard. Am I eating too much? Am I eating too little? Am I eating enough carbs? Am I not? Is something going to upset my stomach? So those mental gymnastics are always tough. And it's like, just eat the way you've been eating. But it's hard because you don't run a marathon every weekend. So I think at this point, I know I've done all the training I've needed to do, and that feels good. But it's just reminding myself to not go crazy when it comes to the nutritional piece, because I know what I'm doing. It's just sticking with the plan. That sometimes is more difficult than anything else.
Yes, and you have this written out plan that you do stick to. And it's so interesting because you stick to the plan for how long have you been training?
Well, with our Kenya trip, I extended this plan. So following like a structured plan for 20 weeks, but 2 of those weeks, I was just doing what I could when we were in Kenya. So it's an 18-week plan that I extended out a little bit.
And so you follow the plan, and then it gets to the final week. And then all of a sudden our mind starts playing tricks on us. Like, we should be doing something so different in this final week of training. And it's like, actually, no, just do what you've been doing the past 19 weeks and trust the training that you put in the work, and you'll show up on race day and what happens, happens.
Yeah, exactly. And the weird thing about race week and even the 2 weeks leading in is your miles decrease significantly because your body needs to recover a bit from all the training that you put in. So that's mentally a little challenging too, because it's like, should I be doing more? And I know the answer is no, but it's just that little voice in the back of my mind always creeping in, making me go crazy.
Well, I can't wait to watch you run. I can't wait to be with our friends and family back on the East Coast. My family's in the process of making signs for you. And I love a marathon day. I love to see all the runners. I love to see you set a goal and crush it. I know that it's your happy place. And I love to watch marathons. So it's pretty much my happy place too.
I'll keep this recording for the next one I sign up for. But Philly is a special one for me. It's the first one I ever ran. All the way back in 2016. You and I were together at the time.
Yep. Newly together.
Now, this will be number 7 for me. So to go back and do the first one I ever did is pretty exciting. And the fact that it's on the East Coast and we get to see our friends and our families and stay there for Thanksgiving. I feel like there's a lot of excitement surrounding the upcoming weekend and then the week after that with Thanksgiving coming up. So there's a lot of good things to look forward to with this race and just the trip in general.
For sure. So let's get into our highlights for this week. We have to talk about the NWSL Semifinals.
Yes, 2 great games over the weekend. And I know you are a huge NWSL fan. I feel like your heart rate was skyrocketing, and every time I look over, I'm like, well, who are you rooting for? And you're like, I don't even know who to root for. And I'm like, okay, it seems like you're very into these games. Tell us a little more about that piece.
Yes, if you're not watching the NWSL, you need to watch. The entire playoffs have been so great. We'll talk about the finals coming up. But in the semifinals, the Washington Spirit took on Gotham in a sold-out crowd at Audi Field in Washington, D.C. It was electric there. In my heart of hearts, I'm a Gotham fan. They're the New York, New Jersey team. But as with everything in professional sports, there's so many players that I like on both teams. I just was so happy that it was one of the best matches of the season. Esther Gonzalez for Gotham in the 56th minute received this slow cross and headed it in, and the head was equally as slow, but it had such a good angle. She scores. Gotham's up 1-0. They go on like that for a very long time. And then in stoppage time at the end of the game, Hal Hirschfeld from the Washington Spirit, my personal fave. I talk about her all the time. I just love her. She scores for Washington Spirit and ties it up 1-1.
Once again, just going to keep saying it until maybe a rule is changed. Why aren't we stopping the clock so we know how much time is left? Didn't they add like 12 minutes to the end of this game? That's just wild.
They've just been adding so much stoppage time. But yeah, she scores. They tie it up 1-1. They go into extra time, which is overtime. Bruninia from Gotham goes into a tackle with Washington Spirit's Trinity Rodman and receives her second yellow card of the match, which then translates into a red card. So she was removed from the game for the rest of the game. So now Gotham is playing with 10 players. The best part of this whole interaction is that it was a foul. Bruninia fouled.
It was definitely a foul.
And as Trinity Rodman gets up, she pulls an imaginary yellow card out of her own pocket and puts it right in Bruninia's face.
I love Trinity Rodman. Also, we haven't talked about fashion or hair in a while. I am just digging the color of her braids right now.
Yeah,
it's like cotton candy, and you know I love cotton candy. And I just think her hair looks fire right now. Obviously, she's been playing great on top of it, but her pulling out the imaginary card was pretty funny.
So that was not very funny for Emily Sonnet, who plays for Gotham and is Trinity Rodman's teammate on the U.S. Women's National Team. They had some choice words back and forth to each other. I know that Emily Sonnet is a super competitor. It was a physical game. Both teams wanted to win so bad. You could see it. And I just love to see that competitiveness between both teams.
Yeah, because you know at the end of the game, they're going to be fine. But during the game, you're going to protect your current teammate and you're going to go at someone. And that's what happens.
Exactly. So the Washington Spirit and Gotham go scoreless in extra time. And then it's time for a shootout.
Going into the shootout, I said to you, I would much rather be the first person to shoot than the second. And you said, I'd rather go second and watch the first person score, because in my head, I'm like, okay, they could do it. I could do it.
Yeah.
Do you still feel that way right now after watching that shootout?
It's so hard because if the other person scores, it puts more pressure on you because it's not your team.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I like to see people do things well because I think visually it helps me.
Even if it's the other team and you're like, oh, now I have to make it.
I like to think that I'm mentally tough enough, but I am pretty sensitive, so I don't know.
I'm just wondering because Gotham did not do a good job at all in these kicks, and we could get into it. I was just blown away by how the shootout ended up playing out.
And let's talk about Aubrey Kingsbury, goalie for the Washington Spirit. She made 3 saves in a row.
Yes, and I don't want to take anything away from her for making those saves. As a former goalie, I know how hard it is to be in the position of a goalie when you're up against penalty shots. The kicker knows where they're going to kick it. Half the time, goalies are just guessing because if someone's going full force with a kick, it's nearly impossible to stop it. And for her to go in there and stop 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 penalty kicks, absolutely kudos to her. Incredible.
She didn't let one go by her.
No.
So incredible. But it did look like the Gotham players who were taking the penalty kicks were moving in slow motion. Yes.
I feel like the way they were positioning their bodies, you can tell which way they were going to shoot. And I didn't feel like they kicked the ball hard enough. I don't know. I'm sitting here on a microphone. I don't play soccer anymore. I understand that me sitting here means nothing talking about this. But from a viewership perspective, I just was like, what are they doing?
Yeah, it looks strange.
It was very strange. And I can imagine goalies watch film when penalty kicks are taken. So maybe that had part in it. Like she knew that's the way they go, but it just felt off. I don't know.
It did. It was definitely off. So the Washington Spirit make all 3 and send themselves to the finals.
Well deserved. They were in front of a sold out crowd on their home field. They came to play. And at the end of the day, if you bring it to penalty kicks, you gotta put them away. Yeah, good for them. I don't know who I was rooting for either. I think back in my head I was like, it'd be cool to see New York go forward, but I think that was well deserved by Washington.
And the Washington fans went crazy. Hal Hirschfeld went crazy, like Marta level crazy after the win. So very happy for them. We'll see what happens as we move on.
Yes.
Let's move on to the Orlando Pride versus the KC Current. This was at Orlando. And in comparison, the fans at Orlando, I was disappointed.
Yes, it looked like not a lot of people were there. Orlando's been having a great year. And we just watched Washington the day before to see that sold out crowd. And then you're like, Orlando, what are you doing?
Yes. And you know that my goal in life is to get a professional team here in Denver for soccer, women's basketball, whatever it may be. And I know that Miami is on the list, and I know Miami and Orlando are 2 very different places, but Florida is not showing out. They're just not showing out. The Orlando Pride are this year's Shield winners, meaning they had the best record. They went on this huge unbeaten streak. And this is the semifinals, and you don't have a packed house. I don't know what the capacity is in that stadium. I was just like, wow. I could hear people on the sidelines, in the stands, individually screaming, and it just felt a little too empty. And the Orlando fans who were there were doing a great job, but there needed to be more people there.
Yeah, I agree. There's no other way to put it.
But let's talk about this because Orlando ends up winning 3-2. Marta for Orlando scores in the 82nd minute to put them at 3-1. It ended up being the game winner, but that goal was the most insane goal I've seen all season. She had 2 defenders on her. She pretends to kick the ball like she's going to kick it to goal. They both slide tackle in that direction, and then it's her and the goalie, and she does it again, sends the goalie in one direction. It was like she was playing with them and scores the goal to put them up 3-1. It was wild.
Yes, watching this goal, I was taken back to high school. So we had an assistant coach straight from Costa Rica, and he played soccer his whole life. He was older at the time coaching us, but his footwork was just unbelievable. He would always like to play games with us. If someone was trying to defend him, he just made us look like idiots. Yeah. He just kept the ball so close to his foot. So if he was coming against me one-on-one, he could go around me. He could do anything he wanted because his footwork was that good. Watching Marta on Sunday score that goal literally reminded me of high school when my coach would do that. It almost didn't look real.
Those defenders, that goalie is going to remember that play for the rest of their lives.
And it's not even like they could have done anything differently. She just made them look stupid. I'm not saying they are bad defenders, bad goalie. No. She just, the way she handled that play was just unreal. So I agree. They probably will not forget that.
And I think a lot of defenders all across the world have nightmares of Marta making them look stupid.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So Orlando Pride move on. They win 3-2. The NWSL Finals will be played this Saturday, November 23rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS and Paramount Plus. Who are you choosing to win, the Washington Spirit or the Orlando Pride?
My heart is telling me Washington Spirit, so...
You're going with Trinity and her cotton candy hair.
I am. I can't help myself, so I'm going with the Spirit. How about you?
I want... for the storyline for the Orlando Pride to win. I know I just pooped on Florida for a little bit, but I want this team to win. I really want Marta to win. She is 38 years old. She has so many individual accolades, but she only has silver medals in the Olympics. She's never won a World Cup. She doesn't have anything team related, and I so badly want her to win with this team. So I want Orlando Pride to win.
I respect that. Moving on to the WNBA lottery. The lottery determines who is going to get the first draft pick in the upcoming 2025 WNBA draft. The lottery took place this past Sunday, and we now know who has the first 4 picks. So give it to us.
In the number 1 spot is the Dallas Wings. Number 2 will be LA Sparks. 3 Chicago Sky, and 4 Washington Mystics.
And for those of you who maybe are new to following WNBA and didn't really get into college last year, but are trying to figure out, okay, who are the players to watch, who's going to go number 1 this year, get your eyes on Paige Bueckers from the UCONN Huskies, because if she's not picked number 1, I'd be shocked. Most likely it will be her. It should be her, knock on wood, that she stays healthy, because obviously that would hinder what would happen there. But I have a few thoughts.
Yeah, can you see her in a Dallas Wings jersey? It's just not what I was picturing.
I wasn't necessarily picturing it either, but now that I think about it, I'm like, for her to play with Arike Gumbawale, for her to play with Satu Sabali, those 3 alone,
Tiara McGowan,
scary. And then you have all these other great players, Maddie Siegrist.
And we'll see what happens with the expansion draft with the Valkyries, which we'll have to get into at a different time, because not all those players may still be there.
Correct.
But Arike will definitely be there. She's got a multi-year contract. She's there through 2025.
And their coach is going to be new because their previous coach got fired. So I think Paige, I could see her anywhere, because I feel like she has such a good attitude and such a go with the flow personality. I think she'll do great wherever she goes. I hope for her that she has an amazing college career, because she's dealt with so many injuries. So I hope her senior year is everything she hopes for. And I've grown to love Paige more and more over the years, and I'm rooting for her. So I think it'll be exciting, and especially if she has a great season, and then to be able to be picked number 1 could be pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Other players that were mentioned in this draft were Kiki Iriafen from USC, previously at Stanford, Georgia Amore at Kentucky, previously at Virginia Tech, Anissa Morrow from LSU. So these are the names that we'll be watching this year to see how they do, because these might fill out the WNBA draft in those first picks. However, I was always disappointed, and I'm always so protective over the Gamecocks. Not one Gamecock was mentioned in this lottery broadcast. I was so surprised. You have Tahina Paupau and Bree Hall for the Gamecocks, who are both seniors who will be graduating and looking to enter the WNBA draft, and they just don't get any attention. It's just so crazy to me.
I agree. And what I said to you is, whenever one talks about the Gamecocks, they talk about the Gamecocks. It's never so-and-so from the Gamecocks. Like, when you talk UConn, the first thing anyone's ever going to say is Paige Bueckers. Yeah. Interestingly, with Gamecocks, they're not saying Tahina Pow Pow and the Gamecocks. They're not saying Bree Hall and the Gamecocks. They are returners on an undefeated team.
And they churn out WNBA players. The best player in the WNBA right now is from South Carolina.
Yes.
When people think of the Gamecocks, they think of the team. You're exactly right. And they think of Dawn Staley. They don't necessarily think of the individual players. Repeatedly, they get overlooked and they do good work. So we'll see at the end of the season if that changes, if one of them moves up into a higher draft projection. But I was surprised. I was like, we're going to talk about all of these other players and we're not going to mention one member of the team on the number 1 seed that has been going undefeated.
Yeah. And that's not to say the people speaking like Carolyn Peck and Andrea Carter don't think that they're going to get drafted. We're talking top 4 picks. Yeah. So maybe they're just not in that top 4 pick category or conversation, but I think they can be mentioned in the conversation. Yeah. So it was interesting. I am excited to see how everything else plays out. Next month, we're going to start to see what happens with the Valkyries and the expansion draft and who's going where. We still have to figure out who we're going to own as a team because we kept talking about last year we don't have a team that we really root for. And I'm telling you, this is the year we are going to have a team.
When Dallas got the first pick, you were like, well, I can't be a Dallas fan.
I don't know what it is. I don't know why I can't just pick a team, but I am going to see where everyone plays out.
Okay.
And then we better pick a team.
Yes.
Do you think we need to pick the same team?
You want to.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think we need to.
Okay. We're going to be a split household when we could just be, this is our team.
We do need to pick a team so that we can watch them throughout the season and get invested in a story. It's the best way to...
And get some gear. We have no WNBA gear. We have WNBA shirts, but I want team gear.
Yes.
So I'm like going all in here.
Okay. Let's see what happens. We'll see where everyone lands. It's going to be crazy with the trades and free agency and this expansion team. There's a lot to look forward to, and it's going to be messy. And we love messy.
Yes, looking forward to it for sure. So with that, we will transition to our deep dive for today. We have a very special interview with the owners of the 99ers Sports Bar, Annie Weaver and Miranda Spencer. The 99ers will open this Friday, November 22nd in Denver. We loved getting to speak with them ahead of the opening weekend. Let's get into it.
Miranda Spencer and Annie Weaver are the owners of the 99ers Bar in Denver. The 99ers is Denver's first sports bar focused on women's sports and part of a growing number of women's sports bars popping up around the country. The bar is named after the U.S. women's national soccer team from 1999, who beat China in the World Cup final and set the impetus for a rise in women's sports attention across the nation. The 99ers is to open this fall, and we cannot wait to have a regular spot to go to watch women's sports. Welcome, Miranda and Annie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. We're excited to be here.
Thanks for being here with us. We're so excited to get to speak with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you both grew up, how you became interested in women's sports? Would love to hear that background.
So I grew up all over the place. I started in northern Idaho, Moscow, small town. I lived there for the first half of my life. Then we moved to Spokane, Washington. Then I moved to Kansas City, where I finally made it to Colorado after actually I moved to Boise in between that as well. So I've been in Denver for about 2 years, but been all over the Northwest and then into Denver. I moved here for a job. I used to work in corporate world. So that is how I ended up here. In terms of sports, and for me growing up, I played all sorts of sports. When I was in Moscow, I played ice hockey, which I was the only girl in the ice hockey team. Played flag football. I was the only girl in the flag football team. And then that transitioned into middle school as well. I played football at recess when I could in grade school. And then they all wanted me to play tackle, but my mom wouldn't sign the paperwork. Football career ended when I was in probably 6th grade or so. Then I played basketball, softball, tennis, just everything except for soccer was my sports background. I just couldn't do anything with my feet. Very hand-eye coordinated. And then when I got to college, I played rugby and ice hockey as well, club sports, and started playing flag football again when I was in my adult life. I was trying to make friends in Boise, found an 8-on-8 contact women's team, which is very different than what I play now. It's full-on contact, just no pads, nothing, just full contact, 8v8.
Wow.
I moved to Denver and started playing flag here. So now we play together in the Fives League as well.
That's awesome. Do you know there's a women's hockey league here in Denver?
Yes.
We have so many friends who play it. Do you play in it?
new. I've been asked to come out and play. I played goalie. I've been asked. I don't have my gear anymore. I literally just sold it when I moved here. So when I moved to Denver, I sold it because I had been lugging it around for years and years and years. And I kept telling myself, if I don't play next year, I'm getting rid of it. And I finally get rid of it. And now it's like, yeah, of course, there's many opportunities to play here. I actually played against Boulder when I was in college. So
cool.
Yeah.
I feel like we were talking about this yesterday. I'm like encouraging her. I'm like, you should do it. I'd love to come watch. I could never play ice hockey, but I'd love to come watch.
We play softball with a bunch of hockey players.
Oh,
like
cool.
they all are in the same league. So if you ever change your mind, we'll hook you up
We
with
have
them.
a team
There you go.
for you.
There you go.
Yeah. I want to do all these activities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially I played softball as well my whole life and so everyone's like, if you want to come play slow pitch again, and I'm like, I do, but now it's like, which adult activity do I want to do?
Yeah.
So,
We're kind of busy with this little project.
Yeah.
Small project, but
Annie, and can you tell us about yourself?
yeah, for sure. So I'm from Iowa. I grew up in central Iowa and lived in North Carolina for a little bit, but then the majority of my life was spent in Iowa. I guess I was born in Minnesota, which is why I'm a big Minnesota fan for most things. And so that's where that comes from. And then moved to Denver, and Miranda and I met out here. When it comes to sports, yeah, same thing. I grew up playing pretty much any ball type I could get my hands on. I'm like, I want to do this. I want to do something that's a team sport, especially. Loved the concept of playing with other people and the community that surrounded that. This is something that Miranda and I bonded over. Was I also played flag football, and I was the only girl playing flag football. And then when it gets to tackle, and my mom's like, absolutely not, you're funny. And so then gave that up, but always wished there were more opportunities there. But then really focused on soccer and basketball. I ended up playing soccer in college. I actually don't play soccer anymore, but same thing. I would love to play, but just don't have the time because we play so much flag right now.
So you guys met playing flag football out here?
we did.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that story is kind
It's a
of
funny story.
So when I first moved here, I think we both did the same thing. You move to a new place, you don't know anybody, you join sports rec stuff to meet people. We both joined. She actually created our Vives team, Altitude Sickness, but I started playing in the Meet Play Chill League, which is co-ed, and I had not a great experience. I didn't like co-ed. We do play in one co-ed league that I really enjoy, but I'm not a huge co-ed fan. I would prefer to play with women. I was actually done. I was like, I'm never playing flag football again. Like, I gave it a run, but I think I'm good. And I got talked into playing this one tournament that was co-ed. And I was playing against some other women who were like, oh, you're pretty good. Did you play? And I was like, no, this is it. I'm retiring after this. I explained that to them and they were like, oh, well, there's this new quarterback who just moved here who's starting an all women's team. You should meet her. You really need to meet her and at least and give it one more shot or give women's a chance. And so they introduced Miranda and I. And then I started playing with Altitude Sickness, the team that she started. Here we are.
Yeah, the rest is history. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Annie, how long have you been in Denver?
I've also only been in Denver for about 2 years. So yeah.
Wow.
The fact that we're opening a business in a place that we just moved is pretty wild.
All that you've been able to do in the past 2 years is also so cool and just hitting the ground running. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Miranda, you mentioned you came out here for a job. You were in corporate. Annie, was your moving out here for a job as well, or was it
kind of
something else?
Yeah, technically I got a job here, but I was a high school math teacher and coach. I coached for and taught for 6 years, and I was getting out of education and going to the corporate world. And I was like, I don't want to be in Iowa anymore. I know that. I wanted to be in a more liberal city, more liberal state. So I picked 5 cities and just started applying to jobs. And I was like, whichever one feels like the right fit, that's where I'm going. And so, I got a job here, but it was more so like personal, and I forced the job to happen.
Danielle made a PowerPoint for me back in New Jersey of all the places that we could live besides New Jersey.
Yes.
And then we just started applying to jobs.
Yeah.
Very similarly to be somewhere cooler.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah. Essentially, that's what I did. I was like, I got to get out of here. What are some cool places? Yeah.
So at what point did you two look at each other and were like, we should drop everything else and open a sports bar?
Maybe a month after meeting each other.
Yeah. Actually,
Wow.
we'd been in communication for a while, and I was
Facebook messaging. She was quite hard to get.
When I first moved here, I actually do have friends out here that I knew when I first moved here, and we were in the mountains pretty much every weekend. The first winter I moved here, we were skiing, and so we were skiing well into April. The tournament that I was referring to was in February, so it was like February to April Miranda's messaging me, come out to a practice. And I was like, sorry, I'm in the mountains.
Yeah,
Can't.
every single weekend. Sorry, I was going to make this one, but I won't
can't.
be here.
We're not
I'm
going to
like,
be back in time.
okay.
Yeah. So we had been in communication, chatting, but yeah, then we met face to face. It was like a month later.
Probably mid-late April, and we did one practice together, and I invited her to a tournament in Texas.
We had an instant connection. She's a quarterback. I'm a wide receiver.
Yeah.
We had a pretty instant connection, and she was like, you should come to this tournament.
Might be crazy, but we're going in 2 weeks, so.
Yeah. And I was like, I think I can swing this. We were driving to our tournament. Miranda was driving, and I was in the back of the minivan, and she was looking through the dad mirror at me. I don't know how it came up, but I was like, I've got this crazy idea. When the sports bra opened in Portland in 2022, my brother lives in Portland. And I was like, I have to go to this bar. I was visiting my brother, but really I was going to see the bra and loved it. I was like, this is such a cool concept. We need more of these. I would love to do it. But I was like, I know nothing about business. At the time I was teaching. So I was like, I can't do this. And I was like, I definitely would want to do it with a business partner who would be the right fit for a business partner. And I met Miranda, and I was like, I think she could be it. So I pitch it in the minivan.
In front of like our entire team, and everyone's like, y'all are crazy. And it's so funny to like look back, because we still play with some of them, and obviously we're still friends with them. And they're like, you guys are actually doing it. And we're like, yeah. I'm looking at her through the mirror, and I'm like, are you serious though? Because I cannot tell. Yes, I'm intrigued. I'm interested. That happened in May, and we created the LLC in July.
Yeah, that was in May. And then in June, I was like, hey, if you're serious about this, because I am, we should probably sit down and talk about what would this look like? Is this realistic? Would we actually be good business partners? We need to know each other better than we know anybody else.
Yeah. And we knew each other for like 2 months at that point.
So we're like diving deep into our deepest, darkest secrets. Hey, this is everything about me. Do you think you could actually work with me? And then we wrote a business plan and started an LLC.
God. It was a journey. It still is a journey. It took 7 months to find a spot. And that was a journey in itself as well.
We love our location. The only problem with this space is we wish it was bigger. Most of the spaces, you meet with a broker. You don't actually meet with the owner. And dealing with them, they don't really care. They're like, this is just our job. And when we saw this space, the broker couldn't come. And so the owner's like, oh, well, it's fine. I'll just make it work. He was in the mountains and drove from the mountains to meet us, which was fantastic, because then he actually got to meet us and hear our story, and hear the passion behind it. And I think that really helped our case.
I think by the end of the visit, he was pitching to us why this was a great spot, a great idea. And we were like, are we being sold?
It was tough because neither of us own a house. And so not having collateral on paper, we didn't look very good. But if you have a conversation with us, you understand how passionate about this we are and how we're going to make it work.
Yeah, for sure. Are you still both working your normal corporate jobs? Are you juggling both right now?
Yeah.
She's still in her same job.
God.
I have transitioned jobs. I left the corporate world in March, and I'm now working for my grandmother and my mom. We have a small business in the family. Very similar work, which has been extraordinarily helpful in this process. And I'm able to be here when somebody needs to be here and have that flexibility and everything. But both of us are also working full-time as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue when we open too, which is wild. I'm dropping my hours. So thankfully my job and my boss, they're fantastic, and they're being super flexible with me. And so I'm able to keep my benefits.
That's big. There was like a lull where I didn't have those benefits.
Yeah.
And we were on 14-foot ladders. And I'm like looking down at her like, ooh, this could be fun. What are we doing up here? So it was 45 days of constant stress for me. I was like, I've never not been with health insurance. This is fun.
Oh my gosh. How do your families and friends feel about you all joining in on this business adventure? What has been the response from the people closest to you?
Nothing but support. We're pretty fortunate to have really great families and friends and support systems. And I think my parents deep down are like, you're crazy, this better work. But they're not saying that to my face.
My grandmother, who started the business in our family 20 plus years ago, her story and her journey is very similar to our story and our journey. When she started her business, she couldn't get a loan. She was divorced. She was a single parent. She had to leave California, which is why she ended up in Idaho, and then all the way to Georgia to start her business because nobody would give her a loan.
Wow.
Nobody would help her start that business. So she got a loan and started in Atlanta. And then after 8 years, moved the business to the Northwest. And now the business has been operating for 20 years.
She's been super supportive of both of us. Like in this whole process, she's been fantastic. In times where I feel like we're like, I don't know if we can do this, she'll call Miranda and be like, do not give up on your dream. Do not give up on your dream.
Yeah.
I love that.
And Annie and my grandmother haven't met. They've only met via phone at this point.
She's coming.
Yeah, she's coming. And I'm excited because my grandma's just excited. She's so proud of me and so proud of us. Doesn't know Annie, but knows what we're doing. I've sent her all of the articles. I've sent her everything that we've done. I think my family is still proud, but I do think everyone just doesn't understand. It's kind of like, you guys are insane because all of our money is tied up into this. Everything is.
Right. I was a math teacher and now I work in risk analysis. I am not a risky person. So to do that, my family's like, are you crazy? If any of us is going to do that. I'm one of 4. My siblings are like, if anybody's going to do something like this, we never would have picked you.
I think it also works towards you, right? Because if you're in risk analysis, then you're looking ahead saying, what could go wrong? How can we make this work? Crunching all the numbers. And the biggest risks have the biggest payoffs. I'm so happy you both are deciding to take the risk because I think Denver really needs it. Danielle and I have talked about multiple times before we heard of the 99ers, like we need a women's sports bar here. We know that it would be so well attended. We even had conversations like, should we do it? We have no business. Danielle actually has her master's in business administration. I have no business background. I don't like working on weekends. All these things that would just never make sense. And so I'm so happy that people smarter than me have decided to do it.
I don't know if we're smarter. I think it's every single day we're pivoting.
For sure. I was on the phone with my mom this weekend and she was like, how do you know what you're doing? I was like, Mom, we don't. We're learning every day.
Google's really resourceful.
Leaning on people who know what they're doing.
Yes,
leaning on business owners who are successful. That's been the biggest
And if they don't have the answer, everyone's been really, really good about finding us
somebody
the
who has
answer.
I don't necessarily know if anybody's the right person. I just think it just needed to happen, regardless of who it was. Denver needed a space like this.
Can you talk about the biggest thing each of you has learned through this process so far of getting to this point of opening?
I think always being ready to pivot. Nothing's going to go as planned. Nothing. There's not a single thing I think that has happened in this process that is exactly how we envisioned it to happen. Adversity is going to happen in anything you do in life. How are you going to respond to it?
I think to piggyback, don't sweat the small stuff. For me, that's really personal, but also business as well. I'm very type A. So everything goes the way it's supposed to go. And it's been, I think that's like where Annie's very strong. She's like, we're okay. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, no. So now I've been able to come down and realize we'll figure it out.
I do think we're a pretty good balance too. There are certain things that like
heighten our stress.
We now know each other well enough to know how to handle that. I don't know if you've heard this, but we had a contractor. We found some brick. It was beautiful. It was original brick to the building. And we had a contractor misunderstand what we said and painted it. And it's like historical brick. So it was going to cost us 10 to 15 grand to restore it and get the paint off.
I don't even think they wanted to give us a quote.
No,
that's how bad it was. I called multiple people and they're like,
ooh,
I don't know about that one.
And I remember at the beginning, this was the first big thing once we got the space and I about had a meltdown. And now I'm like, oh, that wall's beautiful. Like, I love it the way it is. I've got so many other concerns. I do not care about a brick wall.
Yeah. You talked about challenges. What's been the most rewarding moment or moments throughout this process so far?
Ooh, I think the community.
I would probably say the same thing.
Like the feedback, the community, the stories. At our pop-up events, we meet people that are like, oh, I was also the only girl on my flag football team. And I wish I would have had this. You feel so alone, but then you realize there's so many people that are relatable to it.
So many people have been just fantastic in all of this and just want to be a part of it. And that's why we're doing this. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for the community. And
for the people.
Yeah. We always say for the people. It's for the people.
When we're in like really weird,
uncomfortable
trying to put things together.
It's
for the people.
Just remember, it's for the people. We're like dripping sweat.
It's for the people.
It's super hot in here and the air conditioning wasn't working. It's for the people.
What was the worst thing you had to put together? Because Danielle and I have almost gotten multiple divorces over hanging things up on walls.
That's happened. Oh,
I'm trying to think of the positions I've had to be in to hold things.
I was gonna say, so I'm like, again, Miranda's very much, she deals with the communication and she deals with the people, and I'm doing a lot of and she does a lot of the manual labor too, but I'm doing the building stuff and that kind of manual labor. And Miranda's been great about helping me and holding things in certain positions when I'm like building the bar or hanging TVs or stuff like that. But there have been times where we needed other people.
Oh, maybe the TV mounts.
The TV mounts might have been the worst, but I know how to do this stuff. So in my mind, I'm like, I think it should be done this way. And in my mind, sometimes when I get in this fixed mindset, which is not good, I think that everybody else should know exactly what I'm thinking right now and how to do it. And then I get frustrated with people if they're not doing it how I want. Like the TV mount, putting the TV mounts up and then hanging the TVs. I'm like so frustrated. And then I'm like, okay, chill. You got to talk to them. Tell them what you need right now. They cannot read your mind.
Hanging those TVs was awful. I mean, it wasn't too bad. We definitely created some like pulley systems to get them up. It was really just the mounts because the building's so old. Trying to find studs
was hard. And I would drill a hole in the wall and just get
We had like
mad.
16 holes, and she's like, I'm so sorry.
I'm like, I'll fill them.
I'm like, it's fine.
The stud
Like,
finder's lying.
yeah, the stud finder is literally lying. And
They're
it
the
was-
worst. Stud finders are
Honestly,
the worst
I don't
things.
trust them anymore.
No.
After this.
No. And I think that was just frustrating, but we got through it. And now I look at those TVs and I'm like,
and when we're playing women's sports in our
Good
bar,
job.
it's worth it.
yeah,
But-
totally.
Yeah.
Carolyn, that's
For
you in your relationship. You're the one who's like, Danielle should know how to do this.
No, it's the other way around.
Oh, I
I'm
thought
getting
you
yelled
said-
at.
I thought you said I can relate to that. So you can relate to everybody else.
Yes, I can relate to being yelled at.
I hate when you say I yell.
I've been told that I have yell vibes. I don't actually yell, but I have yell vibes.
I'm stealing that. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm totally stealing that because Danielle has never yelled, but there are vibes that are being thrown.
Yep.
Yes.
Side eyes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's why it's so easy just to find a pattern with Annie.
Right.
Okay, so she needs a hammer on this set, 3 nails on this set. I got this. Like,
Yeah.
type A, I can do this.
That's a
It's-
good partner.
Yeah,
You
it took some,
figured it out.
it took some time.
Miranda figured my process out very quickly, and we hammered that out.
Annie throws herself into some crazy situations. I'm afraid of heights, and I really challenged myself on that brick wall in here.
Yeah.
She came in one time. I'm on like the top all the way up, and she's like, "Are you good?" I was like, "I'm good." As I'm like shaking, painting brick because it needed to get done.
It's cool to hear, and I'm sure cool is not the right word because you're going through all these challenges and you've poured blood, sweat, and tears into this, but to be able to hear the back end, because obviously on Instagram, we only see the highlights and everyone's seeing the highlights and people are saying, when is it opening? Just to hear the struggles and challenges, it's nice just to know what goes into it. And then when it opens, everyone's going to be able to see that and bring everyone together. So we appreciate all the challenges you've had to overcome because I can't imagine what that's been like, especially that you're juggling so many other things on top of that.
It's all worth it though. It's for
Yeah.
the people.
Yeah.
It's for the community. Just want to
Mhm.
create a space where you don't have to ask somebody to turn the sound on for a women's game. You know that when you show up here, it's going to be on. Something else that we've talked about too. How often do I go to a sports bar and meet people? I
Right.
don't, but I would love for that to be a thing
Mhm.
here of different groups of people coming and you know you're going to have something in common with the person sitting
Right.
next to you. Another big thing that I love and hope is a thing with our space is I would feel comfortable going and watching a sport broadcasting at a bar by myself and sitting at the bar. Most of my women friends would not feel the same way.
Yeah.
If you took a poll, it's got to be 80-90% of women would not go to a sports bar by themselves.
Mhm.
But I would love for that to be a thing here. Somebody to feel comfortable enough to just come sit at the bar and chat with people around them or just watch the game that they want to watch and not feel any sort of way about it or like they're going to get a nasty comment from somebody like they don't know anything about sports or oh, you're a Vikings fan, name 5 players. Like I hate that.
Right.
I hate getting that.
If only we started doing that with the new WNBA fans. Like,
Right.
we're not doing that to people.
Exactly. I'm like, welcome. Yes, support the
Exactly.
league. I don't care if you know only Caitlin Clark's name. Great.
Yeah.
Watch more basketball. Watch more
Mhm.
women's basketball.
Exactly.
The likelihood of me going into a sports bar now is 0 by myself for reasons like that. But at your bar, my likelihood is going up a lot to come there alone. So I think that's definitely something that other people will feel. And just going to the WNBA club watch parties, we've met people and started talking to people. We're like, this is such a nice feeling to be surrounded by people. So it just made us even more excited for 99ers to open.
Sweet.
When we've gone to the Final Four in the past, it is some of my favorite weekends because everyone is there for the exact same reasons.
Right.
Mhm.
It's like all of the lesbians from around the country just came into one place and are all there for one thing. And there's obviously more people than just lesbians, but it is nice to have
it.
a crew of people who
We get it.
you're like, oh, okay, this is my crew. And I can't wait to have that in our backyard.
For sure.
A place that we can go, that anyone can go, whether they're LGBTQ or not, that they know that they can go and watch sports. I can't wait.
That's the goal.
Can you tell me, as you're preparing to open, what is your goal and vision? What do you see on day one? And then what do you see for the 99ers 5 years from now?
I think something that we always just talk about is, and we know that our space is small. We just want it to, especially being this size, we want it to be full all the time. Even 5 years in, even on day one, 5 years in, whatever, it doesn't matter. We want the community to, and we believe in our community. And like we said, we love the community that's being built, and not only by us, by you guys, by the WNBA club, by other people who are promoting women's sports. We just want the support to continue and prove that women's sports really is the hype that it has been in the past year. And so to continue that, and then also we'd love for Denver to get a professional women's team. I think it's coming. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know which sport it's going to be, but I do think it's coming. And then hopefully building a big fan base for whatever that team is and continuing to build the community.
A big goal of ours is to have kids in the space, whether it's team functions or whether it's somebody that has a little girl that wants to watch a basketball game, whatever it is, softball, whatever. That is really important to both of us because we both needed that too. That's probably a long-term goal for us as well.
We don't have a kitchen. 51% of your revenue has to come from food in order for you to have anybody under 21. For bars, breweries are different. Unfortunately, kids can't be in our space. So we'd love to do a second location as long as everything goes as planned with a kitchen.
Yes.
We also have to find somebody who's a women's sports lover and also a chef because back of house and menu and all that stuff's not either one of our fortes.
I will not do it. I will stay far away from any type of fats or oils. I'm good.
I'm sure we'll have some listeners who would jump at that idea when you are ready to expand. And first starting out and not knowing exactly what it was going to look like, you can't get everything on your wish list, unfortunately. And it's good to be able to be like, if things go well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to expand to. I love the idea of getting girls leagues in there. I think that's so important, especially with youth participation in sports and what that looks like in the long term for their health effects and things like that.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us what people can expect on opening day? What's it going to look like at the 99ers?
We're doing it a little bit uniquely compared to some of the other bars of this type. And part of the reason is because we aren't doing food. And in order to avoid the lines and people waiting for too long of a period of time, we're doing time slots. People have signed up for specific time slots. People will come in for their allotted time slot and then enjoy the games that are on, enjoy some beer. And then when their time's up, they will leave and we will have the next crew in as orderly as possible.
That's great because everyone will get a chance to be able to see the space, which I think is really important. And because so many people in the community are going to want to see this space.
Definitely. As cool as the lines look in social media, we would love for that. Also, we don't want you guys to have to wait for hours. We want to respect people's time. And like you said, allow as many people as possible to see the space.
I feel like these time slots are going to be harder to get than a Casa Bonita time slot.
Yes.
We are planning on doing it Friday through Sunday. So that is for the whole opening weekend.
Nice.
We might throw in some free hours.
Just to, again, try to get as many people in here as possible that
just
first
for
weekend.
opening weekend.
And you all have some of the best merch around. We have our 99ers hat and t-shirt that we love to sport. I was sporting it the entire time that we were in Kenya. We were going on runs and I had my 99ers hat on. So can you tell us a little bit about expected merch? Is there anything new happening for opening weekend?
So we'll have our normal merch for sure. And then we also are doing a special opening weekend launch hat. It actually got promoted by the people who create our merch early on when they first made it. And the number of people who have reached out to us, I thought I saw this hat. What happened to it? And we're like, no, it's coming. It's made. It's real. It's not fake. But we're going to launch it opening day. And I think we're never going to order them again. It's kind of like a fun one-time thing. It's also unique to Colorado.
It worked out perfectly for the season. I mean,
we get a sneak peek.
Yes.
So many people think it's speckled. It's more
not.
than that.
Even we thought it was speckled, but it has like little trees on it, chairlifts, skiers.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And you can show it back.
And it has a leather strap.
I will fight people for that.
Carolyn's going to be tackling people in the bar.
Yeah.
You're going to have your first person you need to throw out, and it's going to be me tackling someone to get that. Those are awesome.
I mean, we've had them for months and months and months, but we don't wear them.
My younger sister, she's got a new job, so she's not sure with time off if she's going to be able to make opening weekend. And she's like, what do I have to do to get one of those hats? And I was like, sorry, I don't care who you are. You don't get any special treatment.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Still in the realm of sports, but we want to hear from the both of you. Who are your favorite athletes in women's sports?
I always think about this question because I feel like there's a different athlete for a different time in my life. Just depending on what's happened, right? I think overall, Sue Bird is probably my favorite athlete. I did play basketball. She's has so many achievements in basketball, but outside of that too, just everything she's done. She's like such a huge activist for pay, for equality. She really, really uses her platform to just propel women's sports and just every other topic that people don't want to bring into their careers because it could be controversial. I love her. I think she's a great basketball player and leader. And then also Megan Rapinoe has been a really, and I don't play soccer. It's just because of who she is. Her coming out journey, I read her book recently, and everything she overcame was just significant to me. Obviously, she's an outstanding athlete as well. Both her and Sue Bird overcame injuries, which is huge in sports. You don't always come back the athlete that you were before. And I can just relate to that as well. And otherwise, big Simone Biles fan. My twin sisters that are younger than me were gymnasts. I did get involved in the gymnastics world, even though I never did it. I did gymnastics with the boys, and then I wasn't allowed to do it with the boys anymore. So I quit. But yeah, just watching her journey too, again, how she's put mental health in the media. And it's such an important topic. I think that's such a huge conversation that needed to happen. And it was late to the table, but so great that it finally has. And it's brought so much awareness, not just in women's sports, but in men's sports as well, that is like such a big conversation.
Yeah.
So those are probably like top 3 for very different reasons.
Yeah, I love those. That's
Yeah.
great. What about you, Annie?
I feel like so many, especially soccer players, have the same answer, but Mia Hamm was my favorite forever and ever and ever growing up. I think I was Mia Hamm 5 years in a row for Halloween. My mom was like, "You sure you don't want to be somebody else?" I was like, "No, Mia Hamm again." We joke and say that we're going to put the pictures of me throughout the years being Mia Hamm hidden in the bar. And if you can find all 5, you get a free drink or something.
I love it.
You have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. She was just such an icon for young women because she was sponsored by Nike, one of the first women athletes to have a sponsorship. And just the things that she did for the U.S. women's national team were incredible. She was actually being broadcasted on TV, which was huge for women's sports. And so she was my icon growing up. Mia Hamm's part of the reason why the 99ers is the name of our bar, obviously, as well as the other members of the 1999 Women's World Cup team. Another name that comes to mind always for me is Billie Jean King. And the reason that she does is more so about her coming out journey and how she was outed. And then obviously that was so hard on her. And then years later, she came out and said one thing she regrets is not coming out earlier. And so I think being a lesbian, that's such a huge icon in the world of women's sports. And then my current favorite player is Nafisa Collier because huge Minnesota Lynx fan, Minnesota everything, but she's just insane. She's such a good athlete, such a good human. Obviously being the defensive player of the year is huge. I'm such a defense everything, like that's my mindset. And so I love the way she plays and I love the way she upholds herself. What about you guys? Who are your favorites?
I know yours. Do you want to go first?
Who is my favorite?
Serena Williams.
Who is my favorite?
I thought you were going to say Serena Williams.
Yeah, Serena Williams is definitely at my top. She just was ferocious and outspoken and everyone wanted to tear her down. And she was just like, nope, this is who I am. That was the greatest role model for me growing up. I loved Megan Rapinoe growing up. I think it was mostly because I was having a gay awakening with her.
Of course.
And now I'm like, even better. She does all the right things.
Yes.
So what about you?
Mine has been Candace Parker since I was in high school when she was at Tennessee. I was just watching all their games, completely obsessed with her and watching her win championships in the W as well. I was very sad when she retired. But
It was also your gay awakening.
yeah, I guess you can say that.
Nice. Love it.
I had a crush without knowing it back in the day.
Yeah.
So how can people support you all, support the 99ers? What can they do if they're in Denver, if they're not in Denver, if they're listening from across the nation? What is the best way to support you all?
Share stuff. Yeah.
That's big.
That's the easiest, especially if you're not here. Obviously, if you're here, that'd be great. But if you're not here, spreading the word that this is happening here. They're popping up all over the United States. So putting us all on the map.
We're actually in a chat with a lot of the new and upcomings. They are popping up. It's going off. Continuing to spread the word and keeping the hype about it and not letting that go away. I think that our community is really good at that.
Yeah,
so
for sure. And then obviously we're almost open. So if you're in Denver, come out, come support, come hang out, watch women's sports, drink beer, hang out with your friends.
For sure. And where can people follow you?
Instagram,
Facebook. We just recently.
We started a TikTok, but we really need some work on that. So if there are any listeners who are really good at TikTok,
just want to give us some tips.
Slide in our DMs and help.
I did not grow up in that era of TikTok, so I am so lost.
It's hard.
And everyone's like, you need to get on TikTok. I'm like, I don't think you want us on TikTok, though.
What's your handle?
At the 99ers Sports Bar.
Go and follow at the 99ers Sports Bar wherever you are on social media. Give them a TikTok follow.
We need it.
We'll work on it.
There you go. Thank you, Miranda and Annie, for joining us. That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.